Hello guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Imabilians. But before we proceed, I want to say thank you to everybody who has subscribed. Thank you for your support. Like this month has been a great month for me because I had a lot of subscribers, and I want to say thank you to everybody who is part of this community. And also, if you want to join us, you can hit the subscription button, and then also the bell button to receive notification from this channel. All right, so let's dive straight into today's episode. You ready? Let's go.
Fuzzling us was the fact that the federal government has banned all mining activities since 2016 in Zamfara. So we are not expecting to see even a Nigeria engaging in gold activities, and not to talk about even a Chinese national. But you are living witness. The Chinese personnel are here and they are engaged very much in that illegal mining activity. Will be made by Inspector General of Police, because from here we'll transfer them to Abuja. In Abuja we will make necessary decisions and our own stop.
I often see they have these big arrests where they go and capture a bunch of sort of illegal Chinese gold miners. So they go there, illegally mine the gold, but in the process they divert river systems. They use a lot of chemicals, of course, for the whole mining process, which is very bad to the...
I don't know who. You kill our animals? No, you see me, I still not kill an animal. I don't know who is that. And this one? Who is the owner of this one? This one same more. This together, I don't.
And the two zoom, how many of them? As pe load, so load the seven, some are manipulation, understand? Seven.
Were on Friday charged with possession of suspected stolen items at Buganda Road Court. This follows an ongoing police probe that unveiled the racket after concerns by some neighbors. The raid showed motherboards of used phones and laptops reportedly stolen in Uganda, then repackaged and exported to China.
And these motherboards for the phones we suspect were snatched from Ugandans.
There were also wildlife exhibits like tortoises, pangolin scales and fish maw also recovered from this house. This is not a phone processing plant, but a makeshift control room with over 2,000 phones, each connected with a Ugandan SIM card in the names of certain individuals. Several Airtel and MTN new lines are visible. So far, police investigations show that these are used for financial crime, especially on the WeChat social media.
We note that these phones were connected to an online platform called WeChat. This is basically a Chinese-owned platform, and it is used for messaging and financial transactions. Now, the preliminary investigations we've had indicated that there were so many financial transactions done on that WeChat. And basically the targets were Chinese. Whether there are some other transactions that have been done that compromise our financial institutions and even security generally. There is also something we have also noticed, that all these telephones which are up are bearing the Ugandan telephone lines of Airtel majorly, with over 1,895 SIM cards, and also MTN of around 223.
Well, this is one of the rooms that these Chinese have actually been sleeping in, as you can see, the bed sheets and the duvets. But again, according to police, they've picked interest in another potential crime, that is smuggling. Because in this room we have boxes and boxes of cigarettes, and if I can read here, it's sept walls. And according to police, they're investigating how these boxes of cigarettes got into the country, and still they're yet to find out if it's actually one of the types that is allowed to enter the country. According to police, some of these suspects were also transacting business without work permits, as many entered the country.
These Chinese that had escaped from the quarantine are being taken to some apartment on Chambago Road, together with the house helps that have been taking care of them. The number has steadily increased, now to over 50 people, and they're all boarding the bus, aided by the DVC police, that is Afande Kasijure, and a team of medics from the Ministry of Health. So those are the pictures that you see. But then I see it's not only Chinese that are here. We also have some people from Ethiopia. There are quite a big number of people. The lady who aided their escape from the quarantine center is also going along with them. And
Seulement en Guinée, ça te fait. Même des Chinois prisonniers, on nous envoie pour venir s'occuper des Guinéens. Ça ne peut plus continuer. Ou ils respectent les lois du pays, ou ils foutent le camp. On n'a pas besoin d'investisseurs qui viennent ici pour insulter les gens. On va le dire au préfet. Ils veulent montrer la force. Ils veulent montrer qu'ils sont forts. S'ils ne trouvent pas la solution, autorité ramène pour 5 minutes. Voilà. On comprend qui est capable de faire. Nous allons aller les écouter. D'accord. Si l'autorité n'a pas de solution, nous ne laisserons pas cette occasion la passer. Nous nous prenons 10 de lui. Allez, voilà, si nous, les karaté, jusqu'au dernier, ils vont foutre local d'ici. On prêt. Mais on a dit, on respecte la loi. Nous allons aller écouter l'autorité. Si l'autorité n'a pas de solution, tous ceux-là que j'ai vus avec les gourdins là, ne dormiront pas en Guinée aujourd'hui. Tous nous arrêtons tout le travail à Bofa jusqu'à ce que tous ceux qui portent le gourdin là quittent ici. Nous respectons beaucoup l'autorité, mais on ne veut pas des gens qui viennent ici pour prendre le bois contre les Guinéens. Vraiment. Notre indépendance, on ne peut l'avoir que dans notre pays. Nous respectons beaucoup les étrangers. Qu'est-ce que vous avez fait pour comprendre les problèmes? Lui, c'est sa force là qui va vous arrêter? Non. C'est son bois là qui va vous arrêter? Non. Si on disait au travail, c'est aller chercher les bois. Allez chercher les bois et venez aussi avec les bois. Venez les attaquer avec les bois. Qu'est-ce qui allait se passer? C'est la mort. C'est la mort. C'est seulement en Guinée. C'est seulement en Guinée que ça peut se passer. Tous les travailleurs, pardon, laissez-nous faire notre travail. Allez là-bas. Merci. 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 Merci.
Africa is a huge continent, could feed thousands of more people, but the policies of the West, especially in Europe. For example, between 1990 and the year 2000, the United States, Canada, and Europe contributed about $6 billion in contraceptives, not to help the people, not to give clean water, clean food. That is
not to fight malaria, for example.
No, of course, perish the thought. Never let them die. That's the whole idea. So, in our work in HLI, we denounced this reality to make the Africans aware that they have to defend themselves against the influence of foreign powers.
Is it just the United States, or do you believe that China is also playing a role in jockeying for the resources of Africa?
China is playing a major role because China is buying property in Africa. For example, in Mozambique, which is a Portuguese-speaking language country, they when Portugal was in charge of Mozambique, they used to export rice. Now they are importing rice from China because they cannot produce. The socialism has wrecked the production of rice. And the Chinese come and buy farms. So about almost a third of Mozambique belongs to China. So I was in other countries of Africa, the same reality. In South Africa, the Chinese are buying property, buying land in Africa. So and they send their own workers, the Chinese workers. They don't employ people of the place. They send their own workers to populate and to was involved with the government. And it explicitly states, which to this day, it remains the official policy of the American government. It has not changed. May not be implemented by Trump, but it remains the same. That the purpose of the foreign policy in Africa was to reduce the population. So to give aid to countries in Africa, not clean water and schooling and things like that, but contraception and abortion, in order to shrink the population of Africa, because they have great mineral resources there.
That sounds diabolical.
It is, yes.
That sounds like something conceived in the mind of Margaret Sanger.
Yeah, definitely. And so at the time, Kissinger and those involved with the Carter administration wanted to shrink the population, make sure that the Africans do not develop and do not use the resources for themselves, because we in the States, we need them. There is a
no problem providing our police with uniforms. We have actually paid for the new uniforms, and the new uniforms are being done. I asked the principal secretary in charge of the State Department of Interior, Dr. Kibicho, who chairs the technical team on the police reforms, to move around the country and look at the capacities we have in our factories, in our textile sector. He has visited Rivertex in Eldoret. He was in Nakuru yesterday. We have gone even to the EBZ zone. What is happening here, and I will speak about it bluntly, and let me make this revelation to you. The Inspector General, the PSI, and myself have been under pressure by some quangles and all manner of spies that we should import police uniform. Listen to me very carefully. We will not import police uniform. Go and write another 10 headlines. We will not import police uniform from any country. We have to promote the local textile industry. Buy Kenya, build Kenya. How are we going to support our cotton farmers? How are we going to support our manufacturers and create jobs in our country? You know, this monkey business that has been going on for a period of time, we go to some shadowy corners and agree to import police uniform from some places and create excuses that isn't it simply outrageous that someone is saying we don't have material in Kenya with the kind of textile sector that we have? So why would the government put budget resources to revive Rivertex and provide jobs in Eldoret? Then we proceed like fools the following day to import police uniforms from Turkey or from China or from wherever. We have already paid. We are making uniform for our police. And take it to the bank from me. We will not import uniform. No amount of pressure, manipulation, or anything will change that position. That style of life has come to an end in Kenya. It has come to an end, and no one is going to live that way. Our uniforms will be made. We have 600 tailors at NYS and huge teams at NYS that are working on this. We'll make the uniforms for our forces in Kenya, create jobs for our people in Kenya, allow manufacturers in Kenya to supply government agencies. Sasa wewe na wakora wako mahali mlikubaliana mtanunua uniform, utaenda uwaeleze hivi, hatutanunua uniform kutoka kwingine. It's as simple as that, and you can write as many headlines as you want. We will not change that position. Na tuwache kudanganyana hapa. Hii ujeuri must come to an end in this country. Hii sasa unaenda huko, we will not do this kind of silly things that people have done over the years and try to mess up our country. We will ensure that everything that we need, that we can get in the country, we get it here. That is how we grow our industry. That is how we support our cotton farmers. That's how we support the manufacturing sector. The private sector understands what we are doing. Our president has been firm on this and has been speaking about this. So we can't live any other way. So if you thought that the headline is going to change our mind, now you know. Don't bother. Or if you want, you can go and do another 10 headlines. But we are not.
Decolonizing Africa starts with simple things. Starts with doing away with apartheid, colonial symbols, and colonial way of doing things. It must, we must, and even if it's not our generation, generations to come, we must have a language that unites Africans, like Swahili. If Swahili can be developed and it become a continental language, and then we do away with speaking to each other in English. Because that's what colonizers did. Divided us, made sure that we don't have a common language to communicate amongst ourselves, and then we use their language to communicate so that they can hear everything we say. So we need to do away with that. if we want Africa which will be an equal competitor with the West and America. So it is through small things that will realize a total freedom of Africa, not only South Africa. I was very worried with those judges in Zimbabwe. Even our judges here, they wear those green things. I don't know what do these things represent. What is that? What symbol is that? Does it mean when you're wearing this thing, you can only think when you're wearing a wig that looks like the hair of white people? You're actually wearing white braids. The reason you think properly is that wig, according to colonialism. And then revolutionaries like ZANU-PF allows that to continue in Zimbabwe. They allow that to continue in Kenya. Well, Kenya, of course, is something different. I don't think there is a total independence there. America has got a huge interest in that affair, in that arrangement of Kenya. But everywhere else in the continent, we need to start doing away with those things. And pulling out of Commonwealth is one of the things we need to do to realize a complete sovereignty for South Africa. We must not be scared to say that. We must be hated. It might not happen now, but that is what we're envisaging for the future of South Africa. It might not be realized in our lifetime, but those who are coming after us should know what we stood for. We were anti-colonial, anti-imperialist, and therefore anything that represented imperialism and colonialism we reject. In the same way we reject Trump, in the same way we reject Theresa May, we reject everything that represented. When we said roads must fall, we meant exactly that we need to do away with symbols that represent colonialism. As we speak now, the EFF doesn't participate in the Commonwealth Parliament Forum. We don't. We don't. The EFF refuses to participate in multinational organizations that have got close links and relations with imperialism. We refuse. We don't. We don't do that. And our going to London, talking to business people in London, talking to business people in America, everywhere else, is not talking to imperialism. It's talking to individual potential investors. The same thing we can do in Nigeria. The same thing we can do in Kenya. We need a borderless continent. We need a continent with one currency. We need a continent with one parliament, which has got teeth and it will bite and hold the executives in countries accountable. And ultimately, we need one African president. We need United States of Africa. We supported and we continue to support those ideals of brother leader Gaddafi. We are following in the footsteps of those leaders. We are not saying they were perfect, some of them, but they are a lot of teachings that come from our leaders in the continent which we can follow because we think they will unite us. This thing was a one thing called Africa. This was one thing. It was divided by colonizers. These borders are artificial borders imposed on us by colonizers. Why do you want to behave like you are owning colonizers' properties? These borders are colonizers' properties, they are not ours. Let us go back to African unity. We want one voice, one Africa. We must stop doing away with African hate, which was instilled in us by the colonizers. When you say, hey, there are too many Zimbabweans here, there are too many Nigerians here. Hey, you are doing the work of the devil, which is to divide Africans. Be angry with Nigerians and South Africans for doing crimes, the same, Zimbabweans, the same way you are with South Africans who commit crimes. They must be treated the same. It must not be because it's a Nigerian, it's a more crime. If a Nigerian kills a person, that killing is twice. As if the murder by South African is lesser than a Nigerian murder. It's wrong. Crime is crime. Let's deal with it as crime. When it is a white person in South Africa, undocumented, he's called an investor. Not only a white person, including Indians and Chinese. These Guptas didn't have proper papers here. These Guptas didn't have proper papers. No one dared called them Kwerekweres. No one. But if it was my African brothers, we're going to be called Kwerekweres because they don't have papers. Self-hate. It must come to an end. If it means making the EFF lose votes for that, let it lose votes. Lose votes on principle. Not on political expediency of wanting to appeal. This country belongs to Africans in the same way Nigeria belongs to South Africans.
Work permits for foreigners are supposed to be given for work which no Kenyan can do. When a fellow Chinese who cannot speak English is manning a gate and Kenyans are looking for jobs, what are you talking about, you fellows? Let's get to the bottom of this matter quickly. Lastly, can we afford 1 million shillings a day? What are you saying? These people are like, this thing is going to become like the port of Sierra Leone and Sri Lanka. We are going to sell our national treasure to these people. 66% of our debt, and is growing, is to the Chinese. If you don't wake up and smell coffee, senators, and Kasakaja, I thank you for bringing this up. This is going to be something. They have given me problems. Senator was telling me about Imali Primary School. They split a school into two. The railway line is in the middle. The school is destroyed. They've refused to repair it. When they go to Makueni, when we complain, they go and bribe the teachers, give them 200,000, 300,000. We have a crisis. Sultan Ahmud had a flood recently. Why? Because of the standard gauge railway. That's the first time we had a flood there. They've blocked all culverts because of raising the railway. Let's get to the bottom of this matter, or history is going to judge us so harshly when we begin paying and selling our country to the Chinese, when we gave them the port of Mombasa, Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, and part of Kenya, which we will give to the Chinese. I call it the road to Shanghai. Thank you.
There are three things that we need to consider. First, we need to consider what is the Chinese plan. The Chinese are building a new Silk Road. Okay, this Silk Road is both in terms of road, it's rail, and it's ports across Africa, Europe, and Asia. Why are they doing this? Because they want to be the center of commerce. That is their idea. And this idea has to be understood with the mind of a Shylock. If you go to a Shylock and he determines you do not have money to pay him back, and he tells you, give me your title deed, I will give you 5,000 shillings, and your title deed is worth 500,000, he is very sure that you will default and he will get the land. Therefore, the Chinese mentality in loaning countries that can hardly afford to pay them back the money to build this infrastructure is they are willing to lose the money to gain the infrastructure. That is the Chinese mindset. The mindset of African countries, and I hope Kenya is an exception, though the signs tell me they're not, is that any money is good money from whoever. And therefore, what we have done is, in the need to expedite our infrastructure and expedite the process of our development, we've taken on more than we can chew. The third mindset is now specific to the SGR. Is it a viable project? There are two ways to look at infrastructure. You can look at infrastructure that pays for itself in terms of the other parts of the economy. Public transport in much of the world is subsidized by by the government. So what the government of Kenya is doing is not exceptional. The question we have to ask is there enough business generated and jobs generated out of the SGR to justify its existence? And that might not be justifiable now. It may be justifiable in 10, 13 years, but we have to prove that the year-on-year growth of the transportation of goods.
You are asking people not to sell. You are asking transport to not to take the number of passengers they are usually taking. If they don't do that, what are you going to do? A shopkeeper who is closing his or her small shop, where he or she gained her livelihood for 90 days, how is he or she going to survive? You are not telling me how that person is going to live. And yet you want to convince me to say yes, 90 days. And even 45 days, I don't agree with. 45 days, 1 month, 15 days, 1.5 months. Can you imagine a family person who struggles to make ends meet by selling this or that, and you ask that person to stop that? And you expect that person to be able to prevent himself or herself from this virus. What means does he or she have to do that? To eat is fundamental.
You know, you raised a very important point. Kwame Nkrumah was very keen on building what he called the United States of Africa, which Gaddafi was also talking about. There was a big debate in 1963 at the OAU formation between Nyerere and Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah was saying, ladies and gentlemen, let us not get too comfortable in our little states. Let's quickly move to the United States of Africa. Because when you become too comfortable in your nation state, you don't want to relinquish your position as president. Nyerere was saying, no, let's do it brick by brick. We move slowly, gradually to integration. We build a SADC type institution, we build ECOWAS, we build Maghreb, and then eventually we have the United States of Africa through gradualism. But that was a problem because that's what they decided to do. Kwame lost in that debate. And so they went the route of gradualism. Now, here's the problem. When we are successful as the African Union, when you have the United States of Africa, there will be one president in the whole continent. Now, tell those African leaders. There will be no president in Malawi. There will be no president in Zimbabwe. There will be no president in South Africa. Maybe the guy will be from Cameroon. Cyril Ramaphosa will be Minister of Tourism for Africa. Is he ready? Emerson Mnangagwa will be Minister of Chiefs for Africa. Is he ready? Mutharika will be a chief. So the African leader is the stumbling block. They want to be president of starving people. America has 300 million people and a GDP of $19 trillion. They have one president, they're doing just fine. China, $11 trillion, population 1.2 billion people, one president, and they're doing just fine. So it's possible for this whole continent to be run by one cabinet with one president. But the current leaders, little Botswana, little South Africa, are not ready. So they talk regional integration, they don't action it. So Nkrumah was right.